Hello gamers, today is Saturday the 18th of March 2023 and in case you're wondering, the game that we have set up on the table today is actually called No Retreat, the Russian Front, 1941 to 1945, which is a bit of a change from the game that I just cleared away, having done the video journal and playing a scenario with it, which was, of course, Panzer Leader, which was, what is that, 1974? And here we come to a much more modern game. This particular version I have is not the very latest edition of the rules, or indeed of the board, I think. This is the 2011 version. And never played it before, and I've just spent around about an hour or so setting it up for the first time, sorting out counters as well. The counters were they were punched and nicely bagged, but they weren't sorted much beyond that. So yeah, sorted them out, got them set up. I'm going to have a crack. I've been reading the rules, and I'm going to have a crack at the first scenario in the scenario book. Which is, if I remember correctly, is only 5 turns long. So that sounds like a very good place to start. The instructions tell you to set up the counters that have turn numbers on them on the turn track. So I've done that over here, but near as I can tell, logic would seem to dictate that, let's see, we've got turns 1, 2, 3, and 4, and 5 here. And sorry, let me get that again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And so the units that are on the rest of the track here, which goes all the way to June of 1945, the rest of them are not going to be used in this scenario. So, but anyway, they're set up for me to play either a longer scenario or a scenario starting at a different point some of the time. So we've got those set up. I don't know if all the counters are in the right place. This one here I'm a little unsure of, but it does have a number 4 on it, so that goes there for the time being. These should be set out correctly here. And then over here we have various markers and so forth, which are supposed to be placed into that box there, but there are a bit too many of them for that as far as I could see, so I sorted them out and grouped them together. And then, of course, the rest of it is the map of the theatre of operations. And it is a piece of work. This is surely, I think this has probably got to be the nicest board that I have, probably of any board game. It's got that, it's not only a very heavy card, of course, cardstock board, but also it's got, I'm sure there's a technical term for it, but it's got that slightly bumpy surface to it that one has on rather superior printed products. The same thing can be said of the outside of some of the Osprey game boxes. Yeah, it's a very nice touch to it, and it's matte as well, so that means we don't have all kinds of glare bouncing off the matte board, which is splendid. And the counters, well, not only the counters, but the matte board itself, everything is sort of larger than you. Yeah, it's been supersized. That's the word. It's larger than you would expect it to be. I don't know what size the counters are, but my goodness, they've got to be close to, I don't know, 3/4 of an inch on a side. So just as a, if we take a traditional Avalon Hill die and put it next to it there, okay, we can see, give us some idea of what's going on. And I don't know, there's my finger. Yes, my index finger. So they are big counters, yes. And also good is that I believe the stacking limits in this game are pretty small. I think it may be, I'm not entirely sure, but it may be a maximum of 2 counters, something like that, which we know Jeff prefers, because there's nothing Jeff likes less than to have to keep, sorting through stacks of counters to try and figure out what the heck is in there, especially if you have one of those games that were designed by Satan that allow you to take a stack of counters that is made of several different types of counters with several different values on them, and then use them to attack an enemy stack of counters in several different places within that stack. I mean, seriously? But anyway, yes, it is a beautiful piece of work. I've read most of the rules and I've been watching some videos. So I think if I just start off with this short scenario, probably a lot of the more sort of intricate and advanced rules are not even going to come up. And we'll just sort of muddle our way through, see how we do in a solo game, of course. And if I can really get the hang of it, then I'm certainly going to be inviting my old mate Steve to have a bash. We've both played the Russian campaign before, of course, which of course can be compared to this, at least in its historical subject. One moment. And yes, this is a hex and counter game, and it's got zone of control and a few other things several other things that something like the Russian campaign would have. But we've got far fewer hexes to maneuver over, so the movement is going to be, you would expect it to be more decisive. You can't just sort of wander around, not much happens. There are so few hexes that surely something's going to be happening most of the time. And the thing about this game, though, that's very appealing is that there are so many things in it that are not in something like the Avalon Hill Classics, where it's almost like you've got sort of rules that come into being and can then disappear again, and conditions are valid up until this point and then they change, and you can have units with no zone of control, and and please don't take me to task if that's possible in the Russian campaign. I can't remember without looking at the rules. But yes, and lots of different ways, lots of different victory conditions, lots of different ways to win, and lots of different ways to lose. And but interesting things like, as near as I can remember, for example, the movement. What was it? You can move over a river as if it's not there. The key thing comes if there's an enemy on the other side of the river. So the rationale behind that I heard in a video, a tutorial video created by a fan, was that river easy to cross if nobody's there. Either cross at the bridges or get some bridging equipment up and off you go. But if there's an enemy on the other side, then it's a significant problem. So that, as I say, is a big difference from something traditional like the Russian campaign. So I think that's where we stand right now, and I'll probably be away for a while while I continue reading the rules, and then we'll see if we can get this first scenario started. Well, here we are. It's gamers. It's March 22nd, 2023, and I've just started the first turn of the first game I've ever played of No Retreat. And to make things easy on myself, I've actually followed the moves in the excellent YouTube video. I think it's done by Legendary Tactics, where the chap narrating is playing an opponent on Vassal, and the opponent's name is Scipio, as near as I can remember. But anyway, I made a note of the opening German moves that Scipio did in that encounter, and I've basically copied those because they seem to make a lot of sense. I've made those moves. What I've done is I've used my usual method of turning rotating the units that I have moved, so we can see which ones I have moved. These chaps down here are not allowed to move. They're allowed to attack, but they're not allowed to move in normal movement. These, of course, are the markers that show where combat is actually taking place. There's a blitz here, a blitz there, and there's a blitz there as well. We've chosen to attack here. Rather, I understand that one stratagem is to sort of starve them, cause them to die from lack of supply, which I believe gives you, as near as I can remember, gives you a victory point. But the trade-off there, as I understand it from what Scipio did in his opening moves, is that that takes time, and so what we're trying to do here is to just kill them outright, so we can move on, so we can make progress. Anyway, I'm sure I'm going to make a lot of mistakes in this, because there's a lot to learn in this. It looks like a fascinating system, but it's got a lot more involved in it than the old Avalon Hill style classics like the Russian Campaign or Africa Corps, that sort of thing. So anyway, we just started, we've made our moves, and we'll go from there. Well, here we are at the end of the first turn. We've done the Germans and we've done the Russians as we get to grips with our first ever game of No Retreat, the Russian front, 1941 to 1945. And let's see, as we might imagine, the panzers have surged ahead into the Russian motherland, and thinly defended, and then the Russians have had their turn. We'll go into a little bit of detail here, if I can. Just let's see. I'll start off in the south. What we had down here is, of course, as we may imagine, the Axis forces attacked in their turn, and one thing that happened there was in the Russian turn was that the Axis forces put a counterblow marker onto the South Army front in at Odessa here, and they were obliged to attack, or they put the counterblow marker onto this unit here, so they were obliged to attack them at poor odds, and nothing. There was basically, oh no, there was a result in the sense that they got a counterattack, so they could have counterattacked them in the Russian turn, but they chose not to. They chose not to. Okay, it was only 4-3. Let's see, what else did we have? Then over here in the center, we had the Central Army front was obliged to retreat, but they moved back to Kiev, and they're occupying Kiev there, and at least I think they did. A card was played, which resulted in the immediate reduction of one step of an Axis unit, as done by the Soviet player, so he chose to reduce that unit there. And let's see, what else? I hope that was right. I hope it was him that was supposed to do it. Let's see. The Bryansk front, they were shattered on turn one, and they were brought back at this point here. And the reason for them being there is to try to start to form some sort of zone of control wall here, so that the Axis can't just sort of move around here freely. They put themselves in the forest there, which means that they cannot be kicked around so easily by the Axis panzer units. Let's see, up here, let's see, I'm sure we lost Northwest up there. Yeah, it's gone into the destroyed units box along with West. So the Axis up here has been able to move into and capture Riga. As we can see, they've also captured Minsk. So there are two cities they've captured so far. Nothing much has gone on up north, or indeed out here to the east by Moscow. So yeah, interesting, because you get these cards, and of course, as I'm playing this solo, of course I do have to try my best to pretend not to know what the other player is going to do. And it is very interesting, because when I was doing, for example, the Soviet movement, I had to remember to be looking at the German cards to see if there was a card that should be played at an appropriate time, or even also during the combat, of course, which I can imagine in an actual two-player game would be rather exciting, when you suddenly start whipping out these cards, which will turn things on their head and foil people's well-laid plans. But yeah, it's going well. It's enjoyable to play. I really like the fact that there are no big stacks of units that I have to keep sorting through all the time to try and figure out what's in there. And also that there are a small number of hexagons involved, so it does make it quicker to make your decisions about what to move where. Of course, it means that you have less sort of precision, less resolution, as it were, than if you had lots and lots of hexagons and lots of units. But obviously, these days everybody seems to be saying, we're not teenagers, we're not 20 years old anymore, so we're not up. We got other pressures on our time and concentration too, and so we don't want to be playing a game that's going to take 24 hours or something like that. So I like the small number of hexes, and I like the small number of units as well. And of course, the other factor is, of course, that is never out of one's mind, is that the map and the components and the board and everything is absolutely gorgeous. So I'll leave you with that for now. That's the end of turn one. Yeah, I wasn't quite sure there, so I've made a small adjustment. That is the one that got reduced by one step, because it is indeed the Axis player who chooses who is going to lose a step because of an attack by the Soviet partisans. So rather than take it from this nice unit here, we've taken it from this humble unit here. Okay. And here we are at the end of the German second turn, and things are definitely going on. We have, let's see, had some reinforcements come up. These chaps here came on, the Second Army, and they started off in Königsberg over here, and they drove like hell down here. And then, let's see, we had some movement, of course, where just in general, the forces were trying to surround the Soviet forces when possible. We had these forces that were up here, 16th Army, 4th Panzer, etc. From this region came down here to avoid all this rubbish up here, moving along the clear ground, trying to get up to the regions, the environs of Leningrad. And then down here, these chaps here moved on Smolensk and had managed to surround it. And they had a 4-1, and with a blitz as well. The blitz offset the city here, so it's 4-1. And the Russian player played the Heroes of the Soviet Union card, which meant that it had to be re-rolled. Initially, it was a high roll, and then he got it down to a low roll of 1, I believe it was, which meant that it was an exchange. So the Germans did lose a step, this unit back here, and one of the infantry units, and this unit was destroyed and sent into the destroyed unit box here. But there is there's no retreat, there's no advance after combat. So they've cleared out Minsk, but they've not been able to move into it and move on. Of course, we've got Moscow right here. So the Soviets are are not liking what they're seeing going on out here, as we can imagine. Then in the meantime, let's see, down here at Kiev, the Soviet Central Front forces were defeated and forced to retreat. So they went straight into the Pripyat marshes and then beyond to here. And then the Germans followed up. Interesting thing in Advance After Combat that you can ignore enemy zones of control. So they just went straight through Kiev and on up to this point here. And then down south in the region of Odessa, we had these chaps that were joined by the Romanians that were able to move now on the second turn. They moved down to here. So they had they had 8 against 3. Again, they have a city, but they had a blitz marker there. So they had their combat there, and the result was that a counter blow resulted, and the German player chose to put it on this unit here. So that means that that unit in the next turn will have to be attacked by this Soviet unit here. And then let's see, coming up in the there was one interesting thing. Another interesting thing was that the Soviet player decided when this was going on here, the Soviet player decided to hang on to his Rasputitsa card, which is played in the German advance after combat, which means that no multi-hex advance after combat is allowed after the battle. So that would have been a great place to put it, but it was thought that he'd better hang on to it because it might be this battle was done before this battle here, and he wanted to stop any advance after combat on the way to Moscow, if at all possible. Of course, it is interesting to it's interesting. Maybe there is some sort of rationale for this. It could be that it's just a bit of fun, but of course, because it's the Rasputitsa, it's interesting to note that that means that the Soviet commander is actually controlling the weather. So let's assume it's something slightly more abstract than that. But anyway, the Soviet commander decided that it wasn't going to rain here, and this was one of those classic dilemmas. You know, do I play the card now, or do I hold on to it and see what happens here? As it turned out, it would have been better to have played it there, because then these units would have been back here. But of course, the Soviet player couldn't have known that this would have resulted in an exchange, as a result of which these have not been able to move forward. So that's where we stand at the moment. If we look at it, we can see clearly that the Germans will be able to get into the environs of Leningrad on the next turn 3. So the Russians have they've got their work to do. They've got 3 units in the destroyed units box over here, and they do have 3 reinforcements coming on this turn. And I mean, why not? So for that, that's our summary of German turn 2. We'll move on to the Russian turn 2 shortly. And as usual, I say, here's to it. Okay, and here we are at the end of the second Soviet turn in No Retreat, the Russian front. And let's see, we had several, we had 3 units come from the destroyed unit box. So they came back on the cost of 1 card each, and they were placed in friendly cities. And then we also had 3 units, I believe it was 3 units as reinforcements that came on as well. So there was quite an injection of manpower into the situation. The Russians, they know that they've got to concentrate on the big picture and, block the enemy, try to establish a contiguous line of zones of control to stop the Germans just running around in wherever they want to. But they also saw some opportunities to actually mount some attacks. They had little choice, because in this situation here, we had this unit here, which in the end surrendered. And the idea there was to try to pound on this unit, which is here, if I remember, to attempt to get it to move so that the central front, which was there, would no longer be out of supply, because it was out of supply. So the idea was to try and get those chaps back into supply, but that failed, and the central front was lost. And let's see, these chaps in the first Panzer moved forward, but at that point the Russian player played the Rasputitsa card, and that meant that only the advance after into the defender's hex was allowed, but no subsequent advances allowed after that. Up here, we've the new arrivals, I suppose. They came on this sort of thing. That's right. These units, actually, that unit moved from Moscow there to face them off with a stronger unit. This unit moved into Moscow from over here, from Yaroslavl. Things stay put up there. Then these chaps came on. And then down here, we had this unit here, which was destroyed in combat, which was down here, where, if I remember correctly, there may have been it was an exchange result, that's right. They had a counterblow marker on them, and the Axis also put a counterblow marker on that unit, which was here. And so the Russians attacked here and managed to flip that, at least. Their own unit that was there, which was the, Kalinin front, was destroyed. So that's in the destroyed units box. And then the south front here attacked against the 3rd Romanian. Because it was a counterblow attack, the river didn't count, so it was a straight 3-2. Forced the 3rd Romanian, to retreat 2 hexes, which they cunningly moved 1-2 like that, so that actually sort of gets them further east, although they're no longer in contact with Odessa. So that's it. Now, of course, the big thing coming up now is in the next turn. It's the 3rd turn. Starting off with the Axis, of course, and it's going to be a mud turn, so that's going to change things rather significantly. Very interesting stuff. I'm really enjoying it. We can see also that this is normally about here is where I would have the Soviet players' cards, and we can see that there aren't any because they've all been used up. Let's see. I think that's about it, actually. So that's. If we zoom out, we can see the big picture. There we go, of the end of turn 2. And here we are at the end of the German 3rd turn. As far as the victory points are concerned, the important thing that's happened is that Smolensk, which was unoccupied, has fallen to the Germans, moved through Smolensk up to this direction here, and also and then in combat the German forces were able to reach the very gates of Leningrad, and because this was before the Soviet forces were able to flip over to the fortified side, they only had 3 combat points there, and also, of course, they had 2 shifts because of it's an objective city, or it's an objective and it's a city, so that's 2 shifts. The Germans brought into play a blitz, as we might imagine. It is mud now, and anyway, there was combat there and there was an exchange. So these lost one step, and the unit here toddled off to the destroyed units box, but there's no movement, so there was no advance allowed. So just a second.